Update on Homekey program grant applications for housing for persons experiencing homelessness or at risk of homelessness. And I'll be presenting this item to the council tonight. Thank you. So if we visit any populated area in California, you will see unsheltered homeless. Sonoma County is not immune, with 2,745 homeless in the 2020 count. 248 were counted in Rohnert Park, which matches our population share of Sonoma County at 9%. Nevertheless, 248 people in the streets and in impromptu encampments is creating health and safety threats for the unhoused and in some cases for our residents. It's disrupting our businesses, it's polluting our waterways, and creating litter all around our community. Here is the annual count of homeless in Rohnert Park.
Wow.
From 2015 on the left to 2020. A speaker 2 weeks ago said, "For years we chased these people out of here." Without commenting on the veracity of that statement, look at the data. During that same time period, we saw a 5-fold increase in the number of homeless counted in Rohnert Park. Strategies of moving homeless around from location to location in the hopes that they move to another community has proven ineffective in other jurisdictions. Pursuit of these strategies carries significant legal risk in light of the court decisions made at the Ninth Circuit in Martin versus Boise. In addition, during COVID, the Centers for Disease Control have said, do not move homeless people from encampments. And in 2 cases in Marin County, advocates have gotten injunctions against cities so that they cannot move them. So the homeless, it's gone up 5-fold, and we're talking about doing something about it. When we look at our community survey, this is a survey we did 5 times, 2016 to 2020, and we asked people an open-ended question. If Rohnert Park could do one thing to improve, what would that be? People are not prompted, they write their own words, and we track what is their most common response. What's the one thing they want fixed? 16, 17, and 18, the 6th most common response was dealing with homelessness, panhandling, other issues similar to homelessness, basically. 2019, it was the 3rd most common answer. 2020, the 2nd most common answer. The second most important thing the people want in Rohnert Park, second to dealing with traffic. Our people want something done about homeless. This is a map of homeless camps in Rohnert Park in 2 years. There are over 80. 80 encampments in 2 years. In addition, 2/3 of the homeless in Rohnert Park are living in cars and RVs. They're not shown on this map. So why house the homeless? The need to house these people is acute as much for them as for the rest of us, our community. But we have a housing crisis in our state, in our country, and yes, even with our construction of new homes, a housing crisis in Rohnert Park. The average amount of income households pay on a monthly rent is 39%. When communities are spending over 32% on rent, the homeless numbers increase in those communities significantly. The homeless are here. Their numbers will likely grow simply due to the housing crisis. We must do something to significantly reduce the impacts on our community. Our community is concerned. Housing the homeless, you reduce the encampments. You reduce the negative behaviors. You improve the health and safety for us all. This is 100% about helping our community. Let's talk about this Homekey opportunity. State is putting out $1.5 billion right now on a first-come, first-served basis, and we are looking at building some permanent or interim housing units. We're looking at a hotel project for permanent housing units where people would stay indefinitely, in some cases for the rest of their lives. And we're also looking at a new modular unit project where they would stay typically about 6 months. We are not proposing a feeding center, a day use center, a drop-in center, a soup kitchen. Those don't solve the problem of getting people off our streets and into housing. Looking at the Homekey program itself, they will fund between $150,000 and $200,000. There's some, you can get additional money if you do some matching and some other things, but that's the basic program. They will provide a 3-year operating subsidy, and so if you do the math for a 56-unit modular project, we could receive $15 million to build and operate a small project. So the city has 2 choices. Opt out of Homekey and opt for more random encampments and all the negatives that come with them. Or strive to create housing using mostly state and federal funds to get people off our streets, out of our parks, and out of our creeks. The homeless pictures I'm going to show you, these are all from Rohnert Park. The one on the bottom right, that's a stack of needles, used needles in our creek. But you know what? These photos could be from anywhere in California. This problem is all over California. Take a drive down Interstate 80. I mean, it is everywhere. Santa Rosa has these same problems. Petaluma, Healdsburg, Sonoma. Or we can choose this. The photos I'm going to show are from Los Guilicos over by Oakmont, and also a project in Mountain View that's a modular unit project, which I'll speak about later. Once the homeless are off the streets and in housing, even temporary housing, then it's possible to leverage state and federal funds to provide services to help them apply for disability and Social Security benefits, get medical care, get mental health treatment, sobering programs, and job counseling. Los Guilicos has seen a 75% reduction in needle drug use. People getting off injection drugs. Rohnert Park, we use overdose chemical called nasalone, I think it's called. But basically, Narcan, and it helps people who are overdosing. We're doing this once a week for our housed population in Rohnert Park. I'm not talking about homelessness. I'm talking about regular folks in Rohnert Park. They've not used it a single time at Los Guilicos. So it's working. They've housed 69 people in 20 months permanently, got them out of Los Guilicos into apartments. They've had no spillover into Oakmont, which was a big concern by the community there. So the choice is between this and this. The storage containers you see in the back are for people's stuff. So it's not out on the street. It's not in our creeks. The units in the front are, people are living in those. They have a locked door so that they're safe at night. They're not being assaulted. They have a roof over their head. They have, in this case, they have little heaters and air conditioning. So we can have this, or we can have this. This is a shower and trailer unit at Los Gilicos for disabled people. And we do have a number of people who are disabled. We have veterans who are disabled, fighting for the United States that are out on our streets right now. So again, this or the dining center at the Mountain View project, where instead of having people scavenge for food, going into businesses, taking complimentary items, for the residents only, not for visitors. And in fact, in Los Gilicos, there are no visitors allowed at all, and we would look to have a program like that here too. This is just for the residents, but they're not going to our businesses. They don't have to panhandle to get their next meal. This is Main Street at Los Gilicos. Look how well kept it is. There's no junk. There's no garbage. When we were there, the residents themselves were cleaning up, using a blower to get the dust out of their area. I mean, there's a pride of ownership. You're creating basically a neighborhood, and allowing people to get out of the trauma of living in a vulnerable situation. So this is the medical building and the office building. So they're providing on-site services to people, mental health, casework, getting treatment for people, and then getting them housed. And I want to say something about that. It's hard to even imagine, I think, because all of us have homes, but what life would be like not having a home. But it is constantly out in the elements. You don't get a good night's sleep. You're under a fear of harassment and assault, and that creates a lot of trauma and a lot of stress, a lot of vulnerability, and as a result, people want to escape. They have disruptive behaviors, and so what you can do with interim housing is get them into a secure space so that their nervous system can calm down. They can get stabilized, and then a lot of the behavior problems are not as severe. And that's been proven at Los Gilicos, absolutely. And they find that about 3 to 6 months, and people are ready to go into their permanent home. And so the interim housing is an important piece. It's not the ultimate destination for people. Again, this, like Nick said, this is our town, and it's being destroyed, and we have to do something. This is Los Gilicos. This is, how they're handling restrooms, so people aren't going to the bathroom in our creeks and in our landscaping in our parks. I went to a park the other day. There's someone sleeping under the bench at the Little League field. That's where our kids are trying to play and enjoy themselves. So there is hope for a brighter future, and this is a demonstration that I think it's important, just to share with everyone that we have shown success in the past. Rohnert Park partnered with Burbank Housing and developed this 24-unit project in Rohnert Park as an affordable housing project, and it was originally designed for people who are, right on the edge of homelessness, basically, mothers with children that are maybe fleeing domestic violence, which is actually how a lot of people end up, families at least, end up being homeless, is through domestic violence. And we built this in 2008, and Burbank handles property management and some on-site services. And this is the type of thing that we need ultimately, to be the permanent home for people. But the interim housing can be an important intermediate step between the street and this permanent housing. So what are we talking about when we say modular interim housing? Well, there's two sites. The front runner site for us is the very west edge of town, which is along Rohnert Park Expressway. And the second choice is Martin Avenue, and there are no other sites under consideration. You can see here, this is a photo from the project in Mountain View. These are basically modular units. You can see one of the doors on one of the units. They have a lock on the door, and it's basically a bedroom, a self-contained bedroom. And then there's another unit that has showers and bathrooms, and then a laundry unit. And then they also have offices and counseling rooms for provision of services and a dining area that I showed earlier. This is a plan, and it's a little tough to read the text maybe, but for the Rohnert Park Expressway site, on the left-hand side would be these modular bedrooms, and then towards the middle would be restrooms and showers and the laundry, and then on the right-hand side is a dining area, the offices, the admin, and then a parking. And it looks like it would accommodate 56 beds. And if you think about it, 56 beds, we have 248 people in the last count. That's about 1/5 of the need. And so I don't think that there's going to be a lot of people flocking to Rohnert Park. We're going to fill it in a week. And we'll have, less than 200 people on the street at that point. But it's not going to totally solve everything, but it's also not going to bring in a big influx of people to fill up the camping spot that we took someone else out of, essentially. So updating the council on sort of what we've learned in the intervening 2 weeks since our last meeting. 3 other cities are looking at applying for Homekey, as is Sonoma County. Petaluma just approved a 25-unit housing project that is not, they're not seeking Homekey funding. They're actually using their federal recovery money funding for this. It's, they're putting basically little modular units made in Rohnert Park out at their existing shelter, congregate shelter, the Mary Isaac Center in Petaluma by their Public Works former sewage treatment plant. The placement of people into these units, we're learning there's a possibility that you can have a local preference. So they want you to follow coordinated entry, but coordinated entry can say, one of the things you can do is not relocate people away from their community, but keep them in their community. So we're going to be working with the folks that adopt that policy to raise that issue. The American Recovery Plan does have homeless housing subsidy vouchers. These would be more effective for the permanent housing, if there was a permanent housing project. But they're specifically for homeless, and there would be the federal government basically paying rent on behalf of these people as long as they stay in those units. So it can bring a lot of money into a project to offset the operating costs. And Dawn is doing some really good work to try to get some of these vouchers dedicated towards some of these Homekey projects to help with the operating costs. We did tour 2 local hotels with Burbank Housing. I think it's probably not going to happen in this round in terms of buying hotels. We did solicit 6 service provider or letters from service providers. 6 of them responded. One of them has since withdrawn just because they have too much going on right now in terms of their own projects that are already in the pipeline. If we do an interim housing project, it must be in place for 15 years. That's part of the Homekey requirement. We estimate the operating cost of about $1 million a year, and we've identified several funding sources that can be used for that. And we're targeting mid-October to apply. They actually haven't opened the applications yet. The state is having a webinar on Thursday. And so when they say late September, they're really the last day of September. And so we've also asked for a pre-application conference with them so that to go over the application materials. So in kind of conclusion, this is where people are sleeping now. This is under a bridge in our creek, but there is an alternative. This is what we're recommending where people sleep, at least 56 of them. And that's my staff report. Thank you.
Thank you, Darren. Thank you very much. That was an excellent staff report. I appreciate it. We'll open this up to public comment and then direction and questions from council. So we'll start with Chris Meyer, please.
Hi, I'm Chris Meyer. I live at 1008 Hawthorne Circle. I want you guys to know I support this 100%, and I want you to get going on this. I know you are. I was going to say a lot of things, but I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it. One thing I will say is we have property in Santa Rosa, and to get there, I go up Santa Rosa Avenue all the time. And the Palm Court was purchased, I think, 3 or 4 years ago and turned into homeless housing. And every time I drive by that, I mean, it's been there for 3 or 4 years. It is still the cleanest of the old motels on that entire street. So they do a great job. It works well. We have some tenants in our storage facility that are homeless that, I mean, they pay their rent on time. They're neat and clean. They can't afford to live anywhere. You know, I mean, housing for them is just out of sight. I've tried to help them find housing. It's very difficult for them. So anything that we can do to provide help for the people that really need it and want it, I think we should do. So I support the city on this, and I think you're doing a great job. And Darren, that was a great presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. Adrian Lobby, please. Welcome.
My name is Adrian Lobby, and full disclosure, I'm president of the board of one of the service providers who put in an LOI on this project. But also disclosure, I was an 8-year volunteer of homeless activism all over the county before this was ever a possibility. And I want to comment on the last meeting. I was listening, and I was, you know, it's always disheartening to see the fear that human beings can hold in their hearts. And an outburst of the fear that we saw here at the last meeting, at the very thought that homeless people would somehow come into a certain neighborhood, it was pretty appalling. And I saw the way that Ms. Elward was treated, particularly felt to me like a very sort of part of it. Like, why do we fear people? We fear the unknown, we fear the other, we fear the stereotypes and the things we despise, possibly in ourselves, we project onto other people. So that was all that projection was going on to homeless people. And then I can only feel like it has to be racism when Ms. Elward speaks and she can barely get 2 sentences out without being interrupted. And it was also very interesting or meaningful that what she was trying to say was about kindness and deep discussion and coming together with people. And that's what we need when we talk about homelessness, because these are friends and family members. These are people we know. These are our neighbors. And this is an amazing opportunity. In 8 years, I have never seen the state and the federal government willing to step up and support cities to do something in a major way. So I'm very proud of you that you're considering things. I hope you'll take some major steps and move forward and really make a difference for homeless people in this community. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll welcome back Debbie Zeiss, please.
Thank you
Hi.
again for
course.
listening. I was just wondering, since the Homekey is going to take quite a while, what about the idea that Julie threw out, that you come up with a place where they can park their RVs, they can have their tents, a place you can get them off the creek and get them off the streets and have a place that's enclosed, that is secure, but that they can actually park their vehicles and have their tents. So something to consider for right now. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Would anyone else like to comment on this item? Okay, we'll close the public comment and we'll start with questions and/or discussion or direction. Go right ahead.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Darren, thank you for the really great presentation. I myself am a visual person, and that really helped paint the picture. You know, I'm going to go off the cuff here based on Darren's presentation, and I think one of the hardest things and one of the things you learn as a new council member is that you have to go from candidate to council member. You're no longer that candidate. And I say that because you know, I'm newly elected, but I campaigned on finding solutions for our homeless community. And so it should be no surprise as to where I stand, not because it's just in my heart to find those types of solutions, but also because when you campaign, you are out there every single day listening to the residents. And it has been very clear that our residents, in my private conversations, in emails, and even in that last meeting that we had, yes, there was really high emotions around the possibility of G-section being one of the viable locations that was on a report. But outside of that, our residents were open to finding solutions and figuring this out, because the meeting prior to that, we were being told that we have to find solutions. So this is us finding solutions. I'm very much in favor of moving forward with the recommendations of staff. I just have to really make it clear that I know that our community is in favor of this, and although we were not in line in the prior meeting on one of the locations, I believe that this is what is the right thing to do. And I just have to say, it's not about me, it's not about, it's about our city. But if our legacy is going to be that we move forward with finding a solution for human beings, then I will take that. So I don't know if that's enough of direction, but
Yeah,
I'm
we're
in
just
favor.
giving an update,
Yeah. Yeah.
the council can just make comments for items.
And I like you off the cuff. That was perfect. Vice Mayor, please.
When we talk about humans, I always get emotional because I have a nonprofit that takes care of street kids, those that society have tossed on the side because they smell, because they look dirty, and because they are on drugs. It took me 2 years to bring those kids from being dirty, violent criminals to becoming a part of the society. Today, as I speak, even though the project is not here, but in a third world country, the poorest country existing right now, those children now have a place they can call home. They look like children again. Giving them a second chance in life has been their hope. When I started that project in 2015, people thought I was crazy, but that craziness turned those kids that were sleeping on the street as little as 5 years old, sometimes younger, trying to go find food on their own. Today, they have a home where they can sleep, be warm, and be children again. And I understand that our community right now, we are worried, and it's okay. But we have to allow all of us to come together and find solution. And it was beautiful to see, despite the fear, that we were able to go, the mayor and I, answer some questions and put the ease on people's mind and open a way for our constituents come up with solutions that they will call their own. And again, I have to brag about our city manager. This is great. A lot of people like to see. Without visualizing, a lot of time it's hard to understand what is going on. And I'm hoping that after they will see this presentation, hopefully the fear that they have, the uncertainty that they have will be at peace and we will have a solution. So this is a great update, a fantastic upgrade, and I am sure that the recommendation that has been put in here, I'm in favor of it. But there's one thing that, a couple of things that I would like the city manager to elaborate here. When we talk about interim project and the Burbank housing, I would like for you to elaborate how this will be beneficial to the city as a whole, and also when you talk about interim project and the housing, is the 6 months is only that period of time, or it's gonna be longer when you talk about interim housing?
Yeah, so beneficial to the city, a couple things. One, get people out of our creeks, get them out of our parks, get them off the street, not have all this garbage and debris and people, using our parks and creeks as a restroom. So provide, sanitation. And also get them to start transitioning from that traumatic street lifestyle into where they can live in an apartment, right? And we benefit from having people who are not permanently homeless, right? Chronically homeless. Get them out of being homeless at all and get them into housing. And interim housing is a critical step in doing that. Some people really struggle if they've been chronically homeless for a while, then transitioning right into an apartment or like a home with, roommates or something like that. They're not ready. They need a time to make that transition. And so that's what this provides. This provides that transition from street to not being homeless anymore. And it's a critical piece. And in terms of the stay, it's not a time limited stay. So it's not, you only have 6 months. That's sort of when we talk to some of the operators of these, that's what they find is that people typically, will graduate out into housing, or some of them don't. Some people do not go into housing out of interim housing. Some people do, exit in other fashions. And so let's be clear about that. Not everyone will be a success story because, that's just the nature of people.
Yep.
What they found in the case of Los Quilicos is their longest resident was 19 months. And they had said, I like it here. It's a neighborhood. I like the people. I like living here. They ultimately went to an apartment. But that's the longest one. They've actually, their sort of average is about 6 months.
I have another, this will be if a constituent come and they are concerned about, mostly the concern is about those that use drugs. So how can these projects really help? I know that you gave a part of the answer there, but can you elaborate for them to have a clear understanding on how this project will help?
Yeah, I think part of the issue is when people are chronically homeless, and some of them, we have thousands of residents living in homes in Rohnert Park who have drug and alcohol problems, and hundreds, probably thousands who have mental health problems. They happen to be housed. The homeless people, some of them, those issues are preceding going into homelessness, right? But the part of the issue is the nature of homelessness has changed over the last 20 years. And it's not sort of, hobos and things like, the sort of historic view of these things. These are regular working folks who lose their job, have a spouse pass away, have a domestic violence incident, and the cost of housing is so high, and some of the social structures are not as strong as they used to be, right? We don't have as many multi-generational families. People are, moving away from their kids. And so people are just regular folks. And at first they're living in their car, right? And then they can't pay the registration, and then their car gets towed, And as they're experiencing this, some of them want to escape, and so they do turn to drugs and alcohol. What we find is you can reverse some of this, right? Get people into a secure thing that they're not trying to escape from. They're not trying to self-medicate using drugs and alcohol. Get them into mental health treatment programs. And so a lot of these behaviors then kind of settle down and calm down. And so it will help with some people. Now, there are some people who are just set in their ways that they are going to do, drugs and are sort of anti-society. There are one or two of those in Rohnert Park, right? And we can probably tell you their names. This is not going to be for them. It's not going to work for them. This is not the solution for them.
So this will be my last question, I promise. I just wanted to make it clear so that our constituents understand what we are trying to accomplish here and the hard work that you guys have put bringing this update and the project that you're bringing forward. So my last question will be, a lot of people we know fear that our town will become the next hub. So how can we speak on that? How can we help them to understand what this project is? And I know that in the update, it is clearly stated that we are not proposing a feeding center, which a lot of time is what draws people to the city. But if you will have to explain a little bit about that part of our constituent fear on the city becoming a hub, what do you have to say?
Right, and we are not proposing a day center, a feeding center, a drop-in center because of that concern. We share that concern. We do not want to create a dynamic where people are attracted to an amenity in Rohnert Park.
Right.
Part of it is the size of this, is 1/5 of what we have counted in Rohnert Park. So we will be able to fill it with people from Rohnert Park pretty easily without attracting a big influx. And I think that addresses the concern. I think if we were doing 1,000-person facility, then it would be filled with people outside of Rohnert Park.
Right.
But that's not what we're proposing, and the size has been selected intentionally. And look at Los Guilicos. They are people. There's not an influx of people going up and camping around there. And I mean, one of the key things is no visitors, right? Because people do know each other from the street. And one of the rules here is going to be you cannot have visitors. At least, that's what we're planning to do. So I think that's an important thing too, is people are not coming there, sharing meals, visiting people and then camping outside the fence, right? We don't want that. And so we want to create a rule and a management system where we don't have that. At least in one case, in Los Guilicos, someone did leave and start camping nearby, and they addressed it with the county code enforcement, right away, because it's really important to be sensitive to the concerns of the neighbors. And so that's partly how we can manage it as well. The thing is, right now, with encampments, and under this federal court ruling, you really have to have a place to put people if you want to enforce anti-camping.
Yes.
And so right now, we are absolutely toothless to enforce anti-camping in Rohnert Park. If we had beds available to us, we could enforce no camping in Rohnert Park. So it's an important tool for us to reduce encampments in Rohnert Park. And in effect, people won't come here to go to encampments because they know, in Rohnert Park, they can actually enforce no camping, right?
Thank you. I'm so excited with moving this forward when we have that opportunity, and I just can't wait to get this project going. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Mayor, and thank you for those great questions. You know, 5 years ago, a group of businessmen were asked to sit on the board of Social Advocates for Youth because we were presented with the Old Warwick Hospital for $1. And of course, $7 million later, we opened the Dream Center to house about 63 unhoused youths. And we also manage the Tamayo Village and the coffee house, right? So collectively, that's about 100 homeless children in Sonoma County. I watched the process evolve at the Dream Center. We suffered through 2 lawsuits, and it took several years to really come to grips with all of that. And there were no incidences to speak of. And the facility is a clean, well-maintained, wonderful facility that supports homeless youth. And the clamor went from, storming the castle to, do these folks need warm socks? Can we volunteer? Can we help? And that really is the continuum of this process. Project Homekey is a once-in-a-generation opportunity. We have to seize it. This is the only path forward. All of the other paths are blocked by either legal or financial constraints. I fully applaud the staff and all of the efforts, in particular the scramble and the amount of work that was involved in being able to find 24 of the people over at the Roberts Lake encampment, other places to live, some of them over at Los Colicos, a facility which I have seen many times because, in full disclosure, I am one of the vendors that provides food for those folks at Los Colicos, and they're very, very grateful, and St. Vincent's pays for that. And they're nutritional, well-balanced meals, and the facility is very well run, and it is impeccably clean and well organized. And so I'm all in favor of this. I'm in favor of human dignity. I'm in favor. The residents of Rohnert Park deserve better than what is going on right now. The problem has been largely not addressed in previous years, and you saw the spike from 2015 to 2020. Like Councilmember Linares, I ran on a platform of addressing homelessness in our community. When we first met in January as a council, 5-0, the council agreed that we need to address homelessness, right? And I understand that all of that is a serenity meditation until you begin the discussion as to where this is located, right? But we need to do the right thing. Those pictures that you saw of Rohnert Park is not what Rohnert Park represents. That's not what we're about. We have worked diligently, and I want to applaud Unsheltered Friends Outreach. They've really done a lot of hard work in helping us to move this forward. And I'd like to applaud Debbie and Crystal, who the Vice Mayor and I met with last week over at Gold Ridge site. Not only did we talk for 2.5 hours, but I think Crystal and I spoke for another half an hour in the dark in the parking lot afterwards. And yes, they have a lot of really great ideas. And yes, that's what we need. Item 7D, we're going to talk about communication. And we're going to talk about empowerment and collaboration and working together for solutions. And this is a perfect example of that. And this is a unique opportunity. And we have to move forward and try to address homelessness in our community. I'm fully in favor of all the recommendations of staff. Like the Vice Mayor, I'm excited for the next steps. I will share with you that I had a half an hour conversation with the Honorable Chairman Saris from the Great Rancheria, and we talked about Homekey, and he is in favor of it, and he wishes to assist us, and it was a great conversation. We chatted about the fact that 15 to 20% of homeless people in Sonoma County are indigenous people. So it obviously adversely affects these populations of these communities of interest. And this is the right thing to do. We do not want them in our creeks. When we did the creek cleanup with Mr. Bennett, I was shocked. I remember seeing the bridge and the person underneath the bridge. I saw the drug needles. It was an eye-opening experience for me. And then after meeting with the residents or the businesses over at Rogers Plaza and making them understand, and they did understand. In fact, we picked up a couple of members for the homeless roundtable that day, I believe, which was great. This is all about building community and working together to effect a solution that gets everybody what they want. If we could all agree on one thing as a starting point, that we don't want homeless encampments in our town, that's a bad thing, no matter what perspective you come from. If that is our common goal, then let us work together. And we need to move forward with Homekey and the rest of these recommendations from staff. And I really applaud you, Darren, on that heartfelt report.
Thank you.
Okay.